Hi everyone, so we are going to continue our reading into the book of Matthew in chapter 2. This next section we're going to be reading, it's about the escape to Egypt. But it's always a good practice to actually recall what we read so far. In chapter 1, it talked about the ancestors of Jesus, and it proceeded into the birth of Jesus where we were introduced to the Holy Spirit. And in chapter 2, it talked about these wise men that came from the eastern lands that brought information to the king. The king proceeded to inquire with the leading priest and the teachers of the religious law whether the appointed time is near or is it already here. And we learned that the wise men saw that same star that they saw in their land actually proceed to guide them to the place where Jesus was. So in verse 13 here it continues, after the wise men were gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Get up, flee to Egypt with the child and his mother. The angel said, stay there until I tell you to return, because Herod is going to search for the child to kill him. That night Joseph left for Egypt with the child and Mary his mother and they stayed there until Herod's death. This fulfilled what the Lord has spoken through the prophet, I called my son out of Egypt. Herod was furious when he realized that the wise men had outwitted him. He sent soldiers to kill all the boys in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old and under. Based on the wise men's report of the star's first appearance, Herod's brutal action fulfilled what God has spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. A cry was heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning. Rachel weeps for her children, refusing to be comforted, for they are dead. Okay, so there was something that stood out to me when I was reading this. Joseph's obedience. We read about that in chapter 1, and I remember when we read in chapter 1, he was introduced as a righteous man. He met with the angel of the Lord there too as well, and he followed through with what he was told to do, and he obeyed. In these verses that we just read, the same thing happened here, and he did not flinch, he did not ask questions, he got up and did what he was commanded to do. The other insights here also, we maybe must have gotten to learn how old Jesus was at this time, because it sounded like when Herod actually found out that the men had left and he was pissed off, the boys that he targeted were 2 years and under. So which means that Jesus was not a newborn but an infant. But it also got me thinking, how long did it take the wise men to travel from their lands all the way to Bethlehem to actually in search of this star and in search of this newborn king? It was very interesting. So did they get there at the time of infancy, or was it the time of when Jesus was born? Something to research, right? But these are some of the key highlights that tends to come when you read scriptures too as well. These verses ended up, unfortunately, with a very, very sad ending of the fact that Herod, in his intentions, and we could read it through these verses, that his intentions was not to necessarily know whether the appointed time was here or not. It was actually totally of evil, and you could see that portrayed here. So I'm gonna leave you with that to ponder on, and the next time we meet we're gonna actually continue in these verses, and it's only 4 verses, and it's actually the section that wraps around the return to Nazareth. So I leave you with that, and I will talk to you later.